Hello, good morning, and welcome back to CS492F, Futures of the World. More precisely, welcome back to topic E, Future Societies, Future Value Belief Systems, part 2, about future societies. This presentation will be given by Dongwon and by Nursultan. So let me put the spotlight to Dongwon. Dongwon, can you turn on your camera? So here you are. Right. Can you improve the lighting from the front?
Pardon me?
The light comes from your back, and it's better to have light from your front.
I think I cannot change it.
Okay, fair enough. Never mind. Okay, so also let me add Sultan. Yes, so without further ado, feel free to introduce yourself. Yes.
Okay, so my name is Nursultan, as you know. So today we'll present with Dongwon about the future of societies, and I will present about the globalization and demographic changes, and Dongwon will present the other part. Can you also tell?
My name is Dongwon, and today I'm gonna present about the future of society, and specifically I'm gonna give a presentation about the future of communication, privacy, and security.
Wonderful.
Okay, so I will first give a presentation about digital communication. First, I want to introduce about some technology that are not new. First, I will introduce about AR, which stands for augmented reality. Augmented reality is the overlay of digital content onto the real-world environment. As you see in this picture, she's wearing AR glasses, and this is giving the overlay of digital content. Like she is talking to someone onto the real world environment. AR can be extended for medical and educational purposes. However, nowadays, because of the precision problem, since they are not precise enough, they are only used as the assistive devices right now. However, we already have fast data sets and high-speed wireless communication. So that means the near real-world AR is not a far future. We can get a high-quality AR in the near future. Second, I want to introduce about BCI. BCI stands for Brain-Computer Interface, and this enables direct communication between brain and computer. With BCI, users control devices using their neural signals, such as their brainwaves. Neuralink, a company by Elon Musk, is one of the most famous BCI producing company. BCI was formerly used for medical purpose for disabled people, but nowadays they are focusing on the practicality and commercial viability. so that everyone can use BCI with them.
This is Pager. He's a 9-year-old macaque who had a Neuralink placed in each side of his brain about 6 weeks ago. If you look carefully, you can see that the fur on his head hasn't quite fully grown back yet. He's learnt to interact with a computer for a tasty banana smoothie delivered through a straw. We can interact with the Neuralinks simply by pairing them to an iPhone, just as you might pair your phone to a Bluetooth speaker. The links record from more than 2,000 electrodes implanted in the regions of Pager's motor cortex that coordinate hand and arm movements. Neurons in this region modulate their activity with intended hand movement. For example, some might become more active when he moves his hand up, and others when he moves it to the right. By recording from many neurons and feeding their activity into a decoder algorithm, we are able to predict Pager's intended hand movements in real time. First, we calibrate the decoder by recording neural activity as Pager uses the joystick to move a cursor to targets presented on the screen. As he's playing this game, we are wirelessly streaming, in real time, the firing rates from thousands of neurons to a computer. Using these data, we calibrate the decoder by mathematically modeling the relationship between patterns of neural activity and the different joystick movements they produce. After only a few minutes of calibration, we can use the output from the decoder to move the cursor instead of the joystick. Pager still moves the joystick out of habit, but as you can see, it's unplugged. He's controlling the cursor entirely with decoded neural activity. Our goal is to enable a person with paralysis to use a computer or phone with their brain activity alone. Because they wouldn't be able to move a joystick, they would calibrate the decoder by imagining hand movements to targets. One of the things the Neuralinks allow Pager to do is to play his favorite video game, Pong. To control his paddle on the right side of the screen, Pager simply thinks about moving his hand up or down. We've removed the joystick altogether. Now that he's up to speed, let's increase the difficulty and see how well Pager can play with the Neuralink. As you can see, Pager is amazingly good at Mind Pong. He's focused, and he's playing entirely of his own volition.
So this was the video of Monkey playing game using BCI. And this tweeter, Thomas Octley, is a owner of a company producing BCI, and he wrote the Twitter just by using his BCI. With his brain, he wrote this tweet. However, BCI seems to be very well working, but the current problem is that they are not quick enough for the real-time interaction. People think about very many information in a short time. However, BCI is not capable of translating the brainwave into the information in the quick time. So using these two technologies, our ultimate destination of future communication is mimicking reality entirely in a virtual space. And as mentioned before, AR or VR and BCI technology advancement will make it possible. And mimicking reality entirely is commonly referred to by the name metaverse. Let's see our second video about metaverse.
키다리 스튜디오와 함께하는 어도비 크리에이티브 클라우드 도입 성공 사례. The metaverse.
The metaverse.
The metaverse.
Let's talk about metaverse.
By now, you've probably heard of the metaverse.
From now on, we're going to be metaverse first, not Facebook first.
But even with all this hype,
and many are betting big that it could change the face of how we interact.
We have to say it's pretty amazing.
the metaverse might still be a little confusing.
What is the metaverse?
The metaverse is basically the successor state to today's mobile internet. It's an internet that is going to be a lot more immersive, more social possibly, a lot more engaging, more 3D. So it's almost like the internet's going to be all around us in some ways, breaking away from our phones, our desks.
The metaverse is going to offer, at least in the way that we define it, let's say it's going to be Web 3.0. It's going to be a world that's going to be more seamless. It's going to give more opportunity for much better experiences, much more immersive experiences.
And to get there, there are a lot of different technologies involved.
You know, it is enabled by many different technologies. So AI, obviously, which is really hot right now, is part of the future state of the internet. AR and VR, 5G, 6G, cloud computing, edge computing. There's an element of blockchain as well, possibly. So yeah, it's kind of how we will experience the future state of the internet. So that to me is part of that beginning idea and concept of how do we make the world more immersive.
I am proud to announce that starting today, our company is now Meta.
Mark Zuckerberg made this announcement in late 2021, saying that his company is now going to be
Metaverse first, not Facebook first.
And other major brands and companies proceeded to join the Metaverse party. Fashion brands like Nike and Gucci created virtual experiences for customers to explore their history, products, and designs. Walmart built a virtual world called Walmart Land, where people can play games, attend concerts, and buy virtual merchandise for its avatars. But some people argue that the metaverse still has a long way to go.
You know, as much as I don't necessarily always like seeing those headlines that proclaim the death of the metaverse, I understand that it was overhyped. There was just a lot. I think it's important to kind of understand that, especially for the younger generations, for Gen Z, but more so Gen Alpha, whatever happens in these virtual spaces is still very real, right? Just because it happens in Fortnite doesn't make it less real to them. It's very real. It's this continuum of the spaces they inhabit, which can be virtual and the physical world. The friends, the relationships they make are real. For a lot of us that are in this industry, it's also making sure that we explain to people, like, this is a long-term vision. It's a long-term play.
We do have one more thing.
And there are some notable companies making long-term plays on the metaverse. Apple unveiled in June 2023 its long-awaited
Vision Pro,
a mixed reality headset scheduled to be released in early 2024. Tech website The Verge demoed it and called it
the best possible version of a VR headset.
Also in 2023, BMW opened what it calls the world's first virtual factory, a digital twin of a factory that it can run simulations on before actually opening the real physical factory. BMW did this using NVIDIA's Omniverse platform, which its CEO has compared to the metaverse. Epic Games, the developers of the hugely popular Fortnite game, is also deeply invested in the metaverse, after raising $2 billion to advance the company's vision to build the metaverse. The LEGO Group, which announced a metaverse partnership with Epic Games, is also bullish on the metaverse space.
Firstly, I don't think that metaverse is going to be just one platform. I think metaverse, at least in my view, should be platform agnostic. I think that's the benefit of it, is the fact that it's going to actually be agnostic to a particular platform. It's going to exist in different technologies, and it should be interoperable. And I think what's going to power it up is if people are able to move seamlessly through the experiences in the metaverse versus actually being siloed into one particular platform.
So whether it's on Roblox, Fortnite, NVIDIA's Omniverse, and through a Meta or Apple headset, or something else entirely, there are a lot of different directions the metaverse could go. And that's the point, as technology, the internet, and the way we use both of them evolves.
This is not going to go away. The internet will continue to evolve. The hardware is going to continue to evolve beyond our phones. You know, what that post-smartphone future, new wearables are going to potentially open up new ways of us to engage with the internet. Those are all things that brands look at towards the horizon. So yeah, the long-term value is that things are moving fast, technology is converging, and a whole new generation that is going to change things is slowly, growing up.
Okay, so this was a short video about Metaverse, and we can discuss more about Metaverse in the discussion time. Moving on to the next topic, security and privacy. There are some future cyber threats that we can think of. What will happen if IoT gets hacked? What will happen when your daily life is hacked by a hacker? And can you change your biometric when your biometric information is leaked? It's not changeable, right? So it should never be leaked. Also, if someone hacks your PCI, your thoughts can be read by another people. Let's watch third video about the future cyber threat.
At a smart thermostat. This is a brand that's quite popular over in the US. And we started looking at its security to understand how it worked. And the first thing we did is we got the code out of the chips. It's called firmware. And we analyzed that to see if there are any security flaws in there. But along the way, we found some crazy stuff. One of the routines that deals with making an encrypted SSL connection, so HTTPS, the padlock, the developer called the routine this, the unhandled SSL bleep status. This is production product. It also has the facility for you to upload family photographs to act as a wallpaper, so you can have photos of your family and kids on the thermostat. And the process that deals with that was called son of a bitch mode. Wow. And that's what really worries me about the state of IoT right now. It's really quite concerning. But then I realized the same attack could do something really nasty. The problem with IoT, it's not your IoT, it's everyone's IoT has all got the same problem. So every instance of that thermostat could be used by a hacker. What if they could trigger everyone's heating or air cooling at the same time? You can create spikes on the power grid. And it doesn't take very much to trip a power cut. So our desire to put smart technology in our houses has inadvertently exposed the stability of our nations. I think that's really worrying. There is some good news, not very much. There's been some good efforts to try and get vulnerable, poor, insecure IoT banned. And some work by the Norwegian Consumers Council and also the European Consumer Organization resulted in My Friend Kayla being withdrawn from sale in numerous European countries. A German privacy lawyer successfully, it's a start. It's about trying to regulate certain standards with this, but just last week, I believe, they're new than that. What about you, though? What about us? What can we do? How can we improve things? Well, there are some things that we can all do. And the first thing I want you all to do is go and actually fix yourselves. You don't need to be a cool hacker to hack people. If your passwords are weak, easy to guess, or blank, or the default one, make them long and strong. Use a password manager. Make sure the pins on your mobile phones aren't 4 digits. Make sure they're 6 or 8. And then patches. Apply patches to your phones and your computers to make them stay secure. And the next thing, IoT, you can put it on a separate network at home. If you don't know how to do that, go and read up. If you don't want to do that, don't buy IoT. Just be safe. But I think also as consumers, we can make a difference too. If we don't buy product that we're not sure about the security of, we're going to force the hands of manufacturers to actually prove it's secure and make it safe for us. The problem is this. There are far too many IoT products out there. There aren't enough organizations and people like me out there doing research and exposing this poor practice, and there are very few IoT vendors that actually care about security. There are some good examples, but by and large, IoT security is really poor. And sadly, I think we have to face it, there is a serious problem with security in IoT, to the point I think we almost need to be afraid of IoT. Thank you.
As mentioned in video, we have to be even more serious about our privacy than before, because we got more to lose than before the advance of technology. We have to take care of our own privacy and start buying products from credible companies. And companies also should be trying the best to prevent the possible security threat. Also, I would like to introduce about the quantum computing and the security issue. Traditional cryptography, such as RSA and ECC, they are vulnerable to quantum computing. I think everyone knows this fact. So,
crypto algorithm that is going to be quantum safe. And the good news is we have some of those. But until we get there, first of all, to say has actually, just as a lot of point of pride, IBM vet. It's going to take some time to vet these algorithms fully, basically discover it and know what, maybe if someone decrypts it later and some other data, that data, protect all of that stuff. If I don't know where, I want to make sure that I'm not just hardware. Wake me up in 5 years or 10 years when the quantum systems get, and I'm going to tell you, you have to care now. Because remember that time machine example in the beginning of the video? That's what's going to happen. We have this kind of attack where we harvest the data now. You care about them safe. And the good news is we have some of those now. And I'll talk more about those in a minute. But first of all, why do you care about this? Because today's quantum computers are limited. They can't crack this at the moment that I'm saying this. Now, this could all change tomorrow if somebody finds a new backdoor. But just consider that today it's okay. But if we look into the future, crypto experts tell us, for instance, some of the projections are that there's a 1 in 7 chance that by the year 2026, we'll be able to break these asymmetric algorithms with Shor's algorithm using a quantum computer that has enough qubits, that is a relative measure of the power of the quantum system. Further, the numbers look like it's 1 in 2 by the year 2031. So if we're looking at these kind of projections, that's not so far off into the future. So if we want to even just estimate and say, well, maybe 5 to 10 years will be okay, you might say to me, Jeff, why do you care? Wake me up in 5 years or 10 years when the quantum systems get strong enough to actually break this. And I'm going to tell you, you have to care now. Because remember that time machine example in the beginning of the video? That's what's going to happen. We have this kind of attack where we harvest the data now and we decrypt later. In other words, I put a sniffer on your network and I start collecting all the encrypted data that's going across your network. Or I get a copy of your database, even though it's encrypted. Maybe it's a backup copy of the database and it's encrypted. And we're going on that assumption I said at the beginning that as long as it's encrypted, we think we're safe. Well, if I go and grab one of these systems from the future and I've kept this data, eventually the future comes to us. And eventually I can start cracking all of the data that I harvested in the past. All of those records now become public.
Sorry, I had to cut off the video because of the time constraint. So what he meant to say was, since they are getting obsolete, we have to change our security system as soon as possible. And for the next topic, there is a blockchain technology that can help our security in the future. Blockchain is decentralized and distributed ledger system, which is secure, transparent, and tamper-proof record of transactions. And with this feature of decentralization and distributed, we can make something called smart contracts, which means automated transaction when certain condition meets. Also, we can use decentralized identity, which is an approach to identify and authenticate users and entities without a centralized authority. Since there are no involvement of a third party, the users can have a sole control of their identity. We will skip the last video because of the time constraint. So in conclusion, as the technology advances, we get more convenience, but it means there are more risks. And as an example of a quantum computing, technology advance can even make our security system obsolete. Therefore, individuals have to care about their own privacy first, and we all have to constantly be alert of the current state of security system and develop them. This was my part, and Nursultan will continue the presentation.
Okay. So globalization is basically a world without borders, in which it's a process by which the people around the world integrate into one single society. So, and it refers to the increasing integration of production, development, and communication among all nations around the world on worldwide scale. So, let's watch a video about globalization.
The world is becoming more and more interconnected. Never before in human history has there existed such an intense relationship between international trade, communication, and politics. The term globalization is all around us, sometimes as an opportunity, sometimes as a new challenge. But what exactly does globalization mean, and what are its ramifications? Even though the term globalization is frequently used, it is not easy to define. One thing is clear: in today's world, economic, environmental, social, and political issues and problems are no longer limited to the national level because the world has become so interdependent. Reasonable governance can only be realized within broader groups of stakeholders. For example, state confederations such as the European Union, regional economic organizations like the OECD, or the whole world. Today, modern communication technology and mass media like radio, TV, phones, or internet are global standard. This means that information can be distributed worldwide in real time at affordable prices. For instance, the average price of a telephone call from New York to London has decreased by 99% since 1930. International TV broadcasters deliver information, opinions, and cultural products to the most remote areas. The cost for transportation of products and persons dropped by 65% since 1930, due to low fuel prices and the development of new means of transportation, in particular container shipping. Air freight costs have dropped even more, 88%. The freight charges for a ton of coffee delivered from Asia to Europe only accounts for 1% of its price. Such developments are the result of technological advancements, but there are some aspects which were introduced purposefully as well. Since the 1980s, the richer, more industrialized countries worked toward removing trade barriers, such as tariffs, import quotas, and bans worldwide. Thus, new technologies, decreasing transportation costs, and the liberalization of international trade has made it possible and profitable for major companies to produce and sell worldwide. Let's take a glance at the three main areas of globalization. The economic sphere is of particular importance. It is a major catalyst for globalization and is, at the same time, the most affected area. International exports have increased 30-fold in the last 60 years. The foreign direct investment of companies and governments has increased substantially. It's risen from $13 billion per year in 1970 to more than $1.8 trillion today. Many companies are searching for new markets and opportunities for cheap production in countries with low wages and soft environmental regulations. The number of such multinational corporations rose from 7,000 to 65,000 since the 1990s. Similar to the world economy, international politics is also more interdependent today. Most important policy issues, like climate change, the financial crisis, or terrorism, do not care about borders. Such problems cannot be solved by a single state alone. Politics tries to react by attempting to make decisions in broader groups of countries, like the EU, the G20, or even the United Nations. At the same time, there are more and more international pressure groups which do not belong to a particular state. These so-called non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, are able to exert influence in politics related to their field of work. Examples include Greenpeace, Amnesty International, or ATTAC. A global public forum evolves through the previously mentioned new possibilities of communication. NGOs use this in order to influence politics. International political problems and the emergence of new global actors like NGOs and multinational corporations lead to a decrease of the political latitude of single states, especially of small states. The influence of globalization can be observed in our culture as well. One aspect is often referred to as McWorld. The term describes how Western culture, especially popular culture, becomes dominant and destroys cultural diversity. The global distribution of Western music, news, products, and even the English language promotes this effect. To counter globalization, we can also see backlash. For example, people are increasingly returning to local and regional cultural customs. Globalization is a very complex development. Some countries benefit more, others benefit less. Newly industrialized countries like Taiwan and South Korea, as well as the rapidly developing India, Brazil, and China, gain considerable advantage from their integration into the world economy. They can build up their factories with foreign direct investment and infrastructure and sell their products internationally. Due to the low wages in these countries, these products are very competitive on the world market. China represents a perfect example of how the broader population can benefit too. Its fast economic growth has enabled 500 million Chinese to leave extreme poverty. On the other hand, there are whole regions who are suffering more than they are benefiting from globalization. This is particularly true for most sub-Saharan African countries. Such countries are not prepared sufficiently for tightened international competition. The cheap products produced by industrial and newly industrialized countries flood the local markets and destroy local productive facilities. Moreover, these countries are not attractive for foreign investors. Thus, they cannot walk the same road as the newly industrialized countries. Globalization is both a threat and an opportunity for industrialized countries. On the one hand, they can acquire new markets for their industrial goods. On the other hand, they are facing the competition of newly industrialized countries that can produce at lower costs. Specifically, the production of simple goods is no longer profitable, and very few products, like textiles, toys, or white goods, are still produced in industrialized countries. It becomes clear that globalization takes place at many areas, such as politics, culture, and the economy. Declining costs of transport and communication and the global liberalization of markets have fueled this trend. While some countries benefit from globalization, it has exacerbated the problems of others. Thus, globalization presents both new opportunities and new challenges.
Okay, and let's move on to let's move to the advantages of globalization as we saw in the video. So the first one, it's called the economic growth, since like there would be like trade expansion among the countries. So like by opening the borders, as they can trade the goods, and it can lead to trade expansion, and also there might be investment opportunities. So like it can, like globalization can attract foreign investments, and which can bring the capital to the countries, and also there might be economies of scale, so in which like companies can expand their operations globally, like benefiting from economic scale, like which reduce costs and produce profitability, and also of course like cultural exchange and skills transfer. And second one is like there might be technological advances. So like the first one is that it can lead to like cross-border collaboration. So like since like globalization facilitates a collaboration between countries and companies, leading to joint research projects and shared expertise and innovation, and also knowledge exchange. So like flow of ideas across the borders can spark a new technological developments, like exposure to diverse technologies and practice can inspire unique innovations. And also there might be increased competition, as we saw in the video. So global markets can create a competitive environment that drives companies and to innovate, adopt new technologies, and to stay competitive. And also there might be rapid dissemination of technologies, so it allows for faster spread of existing technologies, so the countries can quickly adapt the technologies developed elsewhere, leading to quicker technological advancement globally. And the last one is cultural exchange, of course. So by opening the borders between the countries, there might be increased travel and tourism to other countries, like experiencing the culture of other people in other countries. And also there might be media entertainment. So as we saw in the video, so global media networks and internet make it possible to share, access cultural contents like movies, art, and other parts, and also educational exchanges like students, for example, in one country can go to other countries, like me, like from my country going to South Korea to study. So some educational exchange, this is also part of the globalization. And also migration. So people as people migrate for work to other reasons, or migrate for work or for other reasons, like they bring their cultural practice with them, contributing to diversity of the host countries. And also international businesses. So global business operation can require understanding and adapting different cultural norms and practices, leading to a mutual exchange of cultural knowledge and sensitivity. And there also might be disadvantages of globalization. So as we saw here in the video, so there might be unequal economic growth. So like while globalization can boost overall economic growth, the benefits are often unevenly distributed, as we saw, and developed countries or certain sectors within the country might reap more benefits, leaving others behind. And also there might be job displacement. And also wage pressure. So increased global competition can put downward pressure on wages, especially in industries that compete with cheaper labor markets abroad. And also there might be skill divide. So like globalization often favors workers with higher education and specialized skills, leading to greater income for these individuals, while less skilled workers may face a stagnation or decline in their income level. And second one, as we see in the videos, there might be cultural homogenization, so dominance of global brands and media, and also loss of local traditions. So as a global culture become more pervasive, there's a risk of diminishing the local customs, language, and traditions. So people, like especially the younger generation right now, might adopt the global cultural trends at the expense of their own cultural heritage. And also there might be standardization of products and services. So like global marketplace often favors standardization for efficiency and scalability, and this can lead to uniformly in products and services available, reducing the diversity of local options. And also, as we saw like in the video, there might be the English right now is kind of global language. So the dominance of English as a language of global business, media, and internet can undermine the usage and status of the local languages. And the last one is there might be over dependence on global economy. So like if there might be like countries, like especially those with economies heavily reliant on exports, become vulnerable to global markets fluctuations. A downturn in global demand can significantly impact these economies. So there might be like part of it like reliance on international trade, and also the dependence on foreign investment. So and like countries that rely heavily on foreign investment for growth can become susceptible due to due to changes in investor sentiment or global financial conditions, and also vulnerability to global financial crisis. So economic problems in one part of the world can quickly spread to other due to interconnected financial markets. Countries may face economic challenges due to events outside their control, and also there might be supply chain disruptions. So like it's like in a globally integrated country, issues in one part of the world can disrupt supply chains elsewhere. And this was particularly evident during the events like in 2022 COVID-19 pandemic. So like where local economies suffer due to disruptions in global supply chains. And let's move to the like future of globalization, which can be seen. So there might be two scenarios. So backlash against globalization. So there might be like increased movement restrictions in the future. Like it suggests that world where borders become tighter, there's a significant reduction in free movement of people, goods, and services. And also there might be strengthenings of political authoritarianism or response to new global problems. So like despite the backslash, globalization still will play a role in addressing complex global challenges that transcend national borders, indicating a need for new strategies that are more inclusive and sustainable. And also, second scenario may be a stalemate between nationalism and market globalism. So, like one part of it is a tug of war between forces, like challenges in global cooperation, or challenges in global or need for inclusive solutions. So, and let's watch a video about that.
It was really the United States that in 1945 took the lead to try to restructure world politics along what a political scientist would call liberal lines, meaning an open, free trade world that would encourage movement across borders, that would deal with nationalism and protectionism of the sort that had plagued the world in the 1930s. And as a result, with increasing openness between 1970 and, let's say, the financial crisis of 2008, global output around the world quadrupled. I think that the problem that we're facing now is that the impact of globalization has not been felt equally within countries. It's actually increased equality between countries. So in China, you have this enormous elimination of poverty, a rise of a new middle class. But in the developed world, in places like the United States, the impact has been very uneven. And I think this is really the reason now for a very large populist backlash that you're seeing in many parts of the world, in the developed world, that led to the Brexit vote, and I think that have led to this very odd election year that we've experienced here in the United States in 2016. I think that the immediate challenge is really to counter this illiberal populism that's appeared everywhere, where people want to exclude other groups, oftentimes based on race or ethnicity. But we have to understand that things like national identity, while important, have to be ones that encompass de facto multicultural populations. That's really been the consequence of globalization. In 30 years, my hope would be first that we can actually hold on to the gains in terms of global integration that we've achieved up to this point without dissipating into a bunch of competing nationalisms and subnationalisms. I think in order to have a unified political world order, you have to have some degree of cultural convergence. And you're seeing even within Europe, where that convergence is much stronger, that's beginning to fray at the edges. So I think my vision of what the future ought to look like is something I once labeled multilateralism, where you have a dense layer of very disparate types of international organizations. They're used for different purposes. They can interact. You can pick and choose between them to some extent. And I think that that's really the kind of international cooperation that we can actually realistically hope to achieve even in another generation.
Okay, and let's move to the demographic changes. So demography, so first let's give introduction. So what's the demography? So basically it's a statistical study of the human population. So like since like human population exhibits the same fundamental characteristic as other organisms like species do on Earth. And so what is the demographic changes? So it describes the changes in population size and structure caused by changes in birth rate or birth rates, death rates, and also by migration. And so let's watch a video about the demographic changes, which can give a clear introduction about it. So there's a like theory which is called like demographic transition. So in which like it's a model that describe like why population growth is a temporary phenomenon. So like there are 5 stages. So first one is like in the first stage, like birth rate and death rate are also very high, but when reach the second stage, birth rate still remains high, but death rate falls very like rapidly, as you can see in this graph. And also like there might be when it reaches stage 3, the birth rate start to fall, and there's death rate also like falls more slowly. But when it reaches the stage 4, like birth rate and death rate are also, both of them remain slower. And when it reached like stage 5, as you can see, like there might be like some increase in the birth rate, and death rate will remain low. And on the second slide, there was a video about the demographic transition theory, but I think we need to skip and due to time's constraint, but there will be video about the future of society. So, and let's move on. So, so the future of demographic changes. So in the future, it can be like there might be like aging population on many countries, like especially in the highly industrialized countries like South Korea right now, or Japan, or many like Western countries like right now are experiencing like aging populations, and like many people there are many like old people right now. And also there might be urbanization trends, since like for some countries there might be like population growth for some countries, and urbanization will be like one of the solutions to accommodate the population. And also there might be migration patterns. So like some countries, like for some regions around the world, there was like there might be some war, and like people will need to go to migrate to other countries, or other people can go to like by work and migrate to other countries. So this might be the reason. And also fertility rate changes. So as we can see, as we know already, like right now in South Korea, or in Japan, or in Germany, like the birth fertility rate is like really low, and so by statistic right now it's expected to be also like slow, like it will also lower in the future. So there might be like these are some changes of demographic future of demographic changes. So, and let's watch the video about that. So like
a demographic crisis is inevitable. For years we've heard scientific sources tell us that birth rates within developed countries are in decline, most especially in the global West. The total fertility rate by region in Europe stands at an average of 1.6, well below the bare minimum replacement rate of 2.1. In North America, it stands at 1.8, even Latin America is falling behind at just 2.0. But this isn't just a fluke decline and an inevitably exponential upward growth of the total population, nor is it exclusive to the West. This trend of decline has been and is virtually assured to continue globally. In Asia, birth rates have fallen from nearly 6.0 on average in 1950 to 2.2 in present day. In Oceania, where Asian and Western elements meet, we find a fertility rate of 2.4, down from just over 4.0 in 1950. Only Africa has managed to remain well above replacement level into the modern day, but even this present rate of 4.4 is a steep fall from the rate of nearly 7.0 in 1950. With present trends suggesting a rapid population crash on that continent is imminent, estimated to bring it to just 2.0 by the end of the century. China, hailed as a population giant and once having so rapidly rising a population that it sought to stabilize this growth through a one-child policy, now finds itself with a fertility rate of just 1.4, despite having repealed this policy. The similar population titans of the Indian subcontinent have likewise fallen dramatically from an average rate of nearly 7.0, with only Pakistan remaining above replacement level. The causes behind this population decline are numerous and really worthy of their own video. What we'll instead be discussing in this video is what this demographic crisis means for our future. A shrinking or stagnant population means a number of things, but in an economically competitive world, it essentially means a smaller workforce and fewer taxpayers. A smaller workforce means production will decline, meaning GDP will decline, meaning less money will be available to invest domestically, in infrastructure, in defense, in health and welfare. Standard of living declines and taxes must be raised or government spending severely cut back, something politicians are generally unwilling to do in a competitive globalist order. With fewer employees, businesses must grow more efficient through automation of several jobs, downsize their operations, or face collapse. While for a time the population shift will create a brief surplus of jobs which will need to raise their wages in order to compete for a more limited supply of workers, the ultimate need to scale back, automate, or shut down will make job opportunities scarcer, likely leading certain non-essential industries to collapse entirely, especially in the entertainment, leisure, and service fields, as fewer people are able to afford these conveniences and luxuries. The rise in wages and the expense that will of course be shouldered by the businesses employing them will ultimately make the products and services of these jobs all the more expensive, effectively canceling out any benefit the raised wages were provided. This will be especially consequential when it impacts the agricultural sector and the price of food skyrockets. A lack of desire to work low-skilled jobs will further complicate the situation, as statistics from the COVID pandemic have shown a significant dropout from the labor force, as well as a hesitance to budge from a current or previous sector to make ends meet in a lesser-skilled job, even if only temporarily. What this means is that when times get hard, the population increasingly turns to the government for financial support, rather than attempt to make money in a field that might be considered unglamorous or physically demanding. Much as we saw during the decline of the COVID pandemic, with the population out of work but coasting off of government aid, businesses will lower their hiring standards in order to draw in more employees, something almost certain to cause an upset among those who had previously only been able to obtain their jobs through the acquisition of an expensive college degree or rigorous training. For certain fields, this will be a proper and much needed return to equilibrium because frankly, a college education is superfluous for a wide range of white-collar jobs and virtually needless across the board for any lesser skilled job. Particular vocational and skill-based jobs are certain to remain in high demand, and the cost for these forms of education could be expected to rise, whilst college admissions crash and a restructuring of the education system both from within and from outside will become necessary to maintain a small, highly educated workforce to meet the demands of a small but high-demand economic niche. This fertility decline, which has been ongoing for decades, is no doubt a key motivating factor in the increased demand by politicians to increase immigration flow from poorer or less developed countries where fertility rates are higher. In essence, there is an effort to cushion the blow of the demographic collapse so that when it occurs, the economic impact is not as severe, and as a consequence, political instability is avoided. However, this has proven to be a very faulty strategy as immigrant populations have become increasingly supported by federal aid at the expense of the citizenry, welfare use within the US being dramatically higher among immigrant groups than among native-born populations. Further, fertility rates and willingness to work low-skilled jobs declines dramatically among most immigrant descendant groups after just one generation and declines further with each subsequent generation, making mass immigration a band-aid solution to a fatal crisis and one which will have a greater consequence later down the line, As resources become scarcer and divides between immigrant and native populations remain, increased competition will naturally drive hostility between the two groups, and further within the various groups which make up the immigrant and immigrant-descended populations, as they attempt to look out for the best interests of themselves and their respective groups. States which have opted for this temporary solution will be forced to contend with further internal divides which will make emerging from the population collapse all the more difficult if in fact they can survive being torn in multiple directions from the diverging interests of various groups. While this population crash will impact a great majority of the world, smaller and more homogeneous countries will find themselves more capable of enduring the hardship and maintaining a state of national unity, whilst entities like the US, Brazil, Mexico, and to a lesser extent Russia and China will need to manage a great deal of internal unrest. Almost certainly states who can no longer afford to remain competitive on the global economic stage will retreat to protectionism and isolationism, focusing on restoring internal stability in their own local economies and taking a hard shift toward internal policy. Non-regionalist transnational entities like the UN, NATO, and perhaps even the International Monetary Fund would become unsustainable and dissolve. Entities like the EU and KANZIK would stand a better chance given their level of integration at the local and regional level in the case of the EU, and the overall level of homogeneity and like-minded policy in regard to KANZIK. Worse yet is what's to come. This demographic crisis is not the direct result of actions by this current youth generation, but the immediate generations which came before. This current generation faces additional hurdles of social and mental troubles brought on by excessive substitution of real-life interaction with that of the online world, troubles which make relationship and family building all the more difficult. Interest in starting families at all is at a dramatic low. Among men, sperm counts and testosterone levels are in heavy decline, while women are increasingly delaying trying for children to instead focus on work or study. This paints a picture of at least one more generation reinforcing the population crash and extending it by an additional 20 or 30 years. Is a global demographic crisis inevitable? Absolutely. Given current trends, it seems too late to prevent it now anywhere outside of Africa. It is now only a matter of how prepared we will be within our individual countries when this crisis arrives, how severely each country will be impacted, and which countries will emerge on top in the aftermath.
Okay, so this is end of my presentation.
Yes, thank you very much for these two presentations concluding topic E about the future of societies, globalization and democracy, and digital connections, security and privacy. We have a little bit time left for possible discussion, so no break today.
Okay. We have discussion points, so
okay.
Do we have a break time, or instead we should move to the discussion points right now?
Yeah, since the time is already advanced, I suggest that we move right into the discussion.
Okay. Can you see it? So
yes.
So first question is how might emerging technologies like AI and digital platforms shape future global interactions and economic structures? So what do you have any ideas about that, audience? Or you can also give any opinions on any other questions, not just for first one.
Maybe you can read the questions.
So second one is what kind of policies might be needed to address these future demographic changes effectively, as I already discussed. And the third question is many people are skeptical about metaverse. What do you think the reasons of it are? And do you think metaverse will still be nonsense even after the technical issues are resolved? And the last one is what are some potential pitfalls that decentralization can bring?
Yes, so now it's up to the non-presenting participants to share their
If you
thoughts.
have any
Please.
opinions and thoughts, you can freely share.
No need to be shy. Okay, I'll just make a comment, namely about democracy, right? Exactly. Democracy originated in Greece, in Athens, right?
No, it's a demography, not democracy.
Yeah, but my point is about democracy. Yes, it originated in Greece, in Athens, where the kind of royalty, like 100 or 200 families had the right to vote, right? A very small group, if you think about it. Nowadays, it's huge populations that make elections, for example, in the United States. And it's questionable whether this is still working on such a large scale, because these huge crowds of people are also easily manipulated, right? So that's why, for example, Twitter has become such an important tool in election campaigns, right? This is a very efficient way of manipulating large number of people. And yeah, because also many people are not really highly educated, so they're easy to manipulate. You know, I'm heading to the first point, namely emerging technologies like AI and digital platforms. AI will make it even easier to manipulate large crowds, to tailor the manipulation, and thus there's an imminent danger that these digital platforms like Twitter and AI will finally undermine the whole concept of a democracy based on majority votes. What do you think about this possible danger of future society? That's a question for the presenters. No, presenters can answer that question, maybe. Maybe we need a new kind of, or new replacement of democracy. Yeah, anyway, that's a difficult question, I understand. And we're running out of time. So yeah, let's wrap things up for now. And let's all thank the presenters one more time.